The tragic life and ending of Ozzy Osbourne. Before the tattoos, the bat, and the infamous reality show, there was a boy named John Michael Osbourne growing up in a cramped house in Birmingham, England. The world would come to know him as Ozzy, the godfather of heavy metal, the prince of darkness, and a man whose life story feels more like a tragedy than a rock fairy tale. Behind every scream from the stage and every headline was a lifetime of trauma, addiction, broken bones, and survival. This is the untold, painful journey of Ozzy Osbourne, the man who refused to die. If you love deep dives into the lives of music legends, hit that subscribe button. Every click helps us make more videos, and maybe even keeps Ozzy's ghost from haunting us if we get something wrong. Number 1. Humble beginnings and hidden pain. Ozzy was born on December 3, 1948 in Aston, a rough neighborhood in Birmingham. He lived with his parents and 5 siblings in a tiny 2-bedroom home. There was no indoor toilet, just a bucket at the end of the bed. The house was loud, crowded, and always on edge. Privacy didn't exist, and survival came before comfort. His father worked long shifts at a factory. His mother juggled multiple jobs. Money was tight, arguments were common, and every day felt like a struggle. At school, things weren't better. Ozzy struggled with dyslexia and speech problems and was mocked constantly for his heavy accent. He was cast as an outsider, a target for bullies. And then came the trauma that would haunt him for decades. At age 11, he was physically abused by older boys from school. He never told his parents. That silence became a blueprint for how he'd handle pain the rest of his life, by burying it deep. In later interviews, Ozzy admitted that incidents scarred him more than he realized. It taught him that trust could be dangerous and that vulnerability could be a weakness. Number 2. Lost youth and early addiction. By 14, Ozzy was already turning to drugs and alcohol, not for fun, but to numb the voices in his head. He called the thoughts dark, confusing, and terrifying. One night, overwhelmed and hopeless, he attempted to take his own life. His father came home early, saving him without even realizing it. He dropped out of school shortly after and bounced from job to job. He was a plumber's apprentice, tuned car horns, and worked at a slaughterhouse that he would later say nearly drove him insane. Blood on the floor, screams from the animals. It was a daily horror show. By 17, he was arrested for stealing clothes and thrown into prison for 6 weeks. Cold, dirty, and surrounded by criminals, it was the first time he realized he was on a dangerous path. But he still couldn't stop. Ozzy later said those 6 weeks felt longer than 6 years. The smell of the cell, the screaming at night, the hopelessness. But what scared him most was how normal it started to feel. Number 3. Black Sabbath, the rise and the ruin. In 1968, he found salvation in music, forming Black Sabbath with local friends. Their sound, heavy, dark, and entirely new, struck a nerve. Songs like Paranoid and Iron Man defined a genre. Ozzy became a symbol of rebellion, but behind the scenes, he was spiraling. He was drinking heavily. He was using daily. Sometimes he wouldn't even remember recording entire songs. The band's success couldn't mask the chaos. Drugs were everywhere. By the late 70s, he was barely showing up to recording sessions. His bandmates gave him chance after chance until they couldn't anymore. In 1979, they fired him. Ozzy was devastated and furious, but he was also lost. He later admitted he was so far gone he didn't even care if he lived or died. One minute he was the frontman of one of the biggest bands in the world, and the next he was sitting alone in a hotel room, drunk, crying, and unsure what to do next. Number 4. Reinvention and Tragedy. Then came the miracle no one saw coming. Blizzard of Oz, his first solo album, dropped in 1980, and it was a smash hit. The key to this comeback? Guitarist Randy Rhoads, a young prodigy who brought precision and soul to Ozzy's madness. The two bonded instantly. Ozzy called him his brother, his anchor. For the first time in years, he felt stable. motivated, inspired. Randy kept him grounded. Ozzy even began showing up to rehearsals sober, but fate had other plans. In 1982, during a tour break, Randy boarded a small plane with their tour bus driver, who had no license. He flew low over their sleeping bandmates as a prank. On the third pass, the plane clipped the bus and exploded. Randy died instantly. Ozzy, hearing the crash, ran outside and saw the wreckage. That moment shattered him. He later said, "A part of me never came back from that field." The guilt consumed him. He kept replaying what he could have done to stop it, but there were no answers. Number 5. Addiction, violence, and regret. The pain didn't go away, it grew. Ozzy spiraled back into heavy drug use, mixing cocaine, heroin, pills, and alcohol until he was barely functioning. He later found out he had a rare genetic mutation that made him unusually resistant to overdoses. One reason he survived when so many others didn't. But that wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. It meant he could keep destroying himself longer than most. In 1989, the drugs pushed him over the edge. In a blackout, Ozzy tried to strangle his wife Sharon. She survived only because someone was there to stop him. He woke up in jail the next morning and was told, "You tried to kill your wife." That broke him. He went to rehab, but the guilt never left. Years later, Sharon admitted she almost shot him that night. She said, "If I'd had a gun, I would have used it." That was the moment they both realized just how far gone things had become. Number 6. Fame on camera, fractures at home. In the 2000s, the reality show The Osbournes made Ozzy and his family global celebrities. But not everyone was on board. His daughter Amy refused to be filmed and moved out at 19. His older children from a previous marriage, Jessica and Louis, also stayed away. Behind the cameras, things weren't as funny. Sharon was battling cancer. Kelly and Jack were in and out of rehab. Ozzy was barely sober, trying to keep the family together with duct tape and desperation. Kelly started using drugs at 13. Jack became addicted to painkillers by 17. The family seemed wild and funny on camera, but off-screen they were in survival mode. Ozzy often said filming the show was like putting a camera on a house slowly falling apart. Number 7. The body begins to break. In 2003, Ozzy suffered a near-fatal quad bike accident that shattered his body. He broke 8 ribs, cracked his neck, and spent days in a coma. Doctors used metal rods to hold him together. He survived, but the damage was permanent. Then in 2019, a fall in his bathroom dislodged those same rods. The pain was unbearable. He said it felt like a white flash of death. That fall led to a series of spinal surgeries, and finally a diagnosis of a rare form of Parkinson's disease. He later described waking up unable to move, unable to speak, unsure if he'd ever be able to walk again. By 2023, Ozzy officially retired from touring. It was the hardest decision of his life. He said, "It felt like losing the love of my life." Number 8. False deaths and one final show. Even in retirement, rumors swirled. In 2023, a YouTube video falsely claimed Ozzy had died. He found it and joked, "Apparently I'm dead." But under the humor was a brutal truth. His health was fading. Then came another heartbreak, the death of his dog, Rocky. That little Pomeranian had been with him for 15 years, through tours, surgeries, and scandals. Ozzy said goodbye with a tearful post, "I'll see you on the other side." Still, one dream remained, a final show. In July 2025, Ozzy is set to perform one last time in Birmingham with the original Black Sabbath lineup. It's called Back to the Beginning. For Ozzy, it's not just a concert, it's closure. One last chance to say goodbye on his own terms. Number 9. A legend who refused to quit. Ozzy Osbourne's story isn't just about music. It's about surviving when every part of your life wants you to give up. It's about making peace with your demons, even if they never fully disappear. From poverty to prison, from overdose to the stage, from broken bones to a farewell tour, he's still standing. Even now, in a wheelchair, fighting Parkinson's, Ozzy insists he isn't done. He told fans, "For all of my complaining, I'm still alive, and that means I've still got something to say." What moment from Ozzy's life hit you the hardest? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more real stories from the lives of legends, like and subscribe. We've got more wild journeys coming your way. See you in the next one.